Thank you very much, Mr. de Klerk, for your time this Sunday afternoon. Can you quantify for us the backlog? So we've heard there are 150 samples or cases or documents. How many is that in the broad context of how many are usually processed?
Well, over the course of exhibits and property that's processed at these facilities, you're talking about 8 million samples. So if each case has anything between, say, 1 and 10 or more samples, then you're talking about hundreds of thousands. We've seen a rise from 117,000 in November last year to 173,000 as recently as March. So that's a significant increase. If that happens, if the backlog continues to even generate 20 to 30,000 a month, the knock-on effect means that we will have years before we sort this out.
What's the impact of this backlog in processing forensic evidence on the justice system's ability to secure convictions?
Well, the South African police in a recent communique basically said that if the system that safeguards the integrity of samples and exhibits and property related to crimes, if that essentially stops and comes to a halt, it will cripple the criminal justice system. So what we have had is at a de facto complete stop to the ability of the national public prosecutors to proceed with cases because they were unable to ensure the chain of custody and the integrity of samples, and then to get the results from these to be able to pursue cases against suspects. And that effectively has been at a halt for the last, from what we know, comfortably about 10 months now.
According to Gareth Newham, the head of the Justice and Violence Prevention Programme at the Institute for Security Studies, there had been a 24% decline in the police's ability to solve murders between 2012 and 2020. Now, 80% of murders don't get solved. If the police cannot process evidence to secure convictions, then surely there's no significant deterrent to criminals, also affecting the crime stats.
Well, on the upside of this is that not all cases are dependent on forensic evidence. Sometimes we have clear eyewitness testimony, sometimes we have people caught in the act, and other times we have confessions. So all of these means that there are other ways of being able to sentence and proceed against a particular suspect. The problem here is that we already in South Africa have significantly low conviction rates. Our conviction rates are in the single digits for certain categories of crime, and in particularly worrisome given that about 60 to 70% of the DNA evidence that has not been processed are for violent gender-based crimes. And there the conviction rate is already around between 7 and 8%. So this means there's a number of victims that will not see justice done timely.
Just hypothetically, if I was a rapist watching this interview, I'd feel very happy that there's very little chance of me ever getting convicted of crimes.
Unfortunately, that's been the de facto situation in South Africa for a while, and we've got to start asking serious questions about this. This smacks not only of gross incompetence, a lack of serious public leadership on the issues, and even gross negligence on the part of the South African Police Service. And you can't go to the portfolio committee, get an instruction to undertake to remedy the situation within the course of a week to 10 days, and you simply don't do so. Remember, the portfolio committee are our public representatives acting in our public interest, and to whom the South African Police Service is accountable. So when they fail to actually respond to a direct instruction, surely there needs to be consequences, because they're failing all of us, both victim and society at large, and essentially sending a very worrisome message to perpetrators of crime, is that they can do so with impunity, because the possibility of getting arrested is probably low as it is. When you are arrested, that you will be acted upon on the basis of clear evidence, is diminishing each and every day. That's a very worrisome situation for the entire criminal justice system.
Who do we hold directly accountable? With so many people in leadership structures and instructions needing to filter down to basically the boots on the ground and the people who are processing these samples and cases, who do we ultimately hold accountable?
Let's accept that those who process crime scenes will do so to ensure that the integrity of evidence collected at crime scenes. Let's accept that they do a good job. Let's accept that we have world-class people who work at our forensic services. When they are not supported with the proper equipment, with the proper tools to do their job, then that's a question of leadership and management. So to my mind, if I read the situation correctly, and I think I do, then it's surely the senior management of the South African Police Service, with the single head, the accounting officer being the National Commissioner, who has to be publicly accountable to us and provide straightforward reasons and questions why the situation was allowed to deteriorate to the extent that it has, why correction was not done timeously, and third, why there seems to be just sheer failing on their behalf as leaders and management. So for me, it's from the top downwards and not the bottom up.
We also have to accept that we live in the 21st century. A large portion of processing of evidence and record keeping is data systems. And we know there have been serious problems with one company that's been responsible historically to keep all the records, that the police service has not been paying them for these services and the facility, and they have now withdrawn that function. Is that also a major contributing factor to this backlog of samples being not being processed?
Absolutely. Procurement cannot hold the South African Police Service operational functionality and capability hostage. That means we have the tail wagging the dog, essentially. So finance and procurement should never be the excuse singly. And a non-payment of an invoice, surely, now that we see the impact of it, is completely unacceptable. So we've all listened to the company. Apparently they've been to court 9 times and won each and every time. There was an undertaking given by the South African Police Service that they would purchase the particular software in question. They didn't do so. Money was ring-fenced by Treasury to the tune of, I think, 560 million rand last year already to be able to effect this purchase. That was not done. So again, we keep, unfortunately, having to ask the question, where is the leadership that is supposed to be professional, competent, and principled when it comes to dealing with such a vital institution like the South African Police Service, to lead it and to manage it? If they fail to do so, one of the effects of this is not only in the criminal justice system and its ability to convict perpetrators, but in public confidence that we have in a vital and key institution like the police. That public confidence diminishes year in and year out. And now again, it's failing victims, their families, and all of us. So again, there's a blow to the trust and the confidence that we as the public have in a key institution like the South African Police Service.
They might as well install a revolving door in the headquarters of the SAPS with the frequency of positions that are replaced. Those that are competent and good at their jobs are crippled by corruption and by ineffectivity from structures higher up. Those who are seemingly corrupt are encouraged and promoted. How do we rid the system of the rot? It's a very broad question. I do apologize. I'm throwing you under the bus by asking you how to fix a system that's very, very big, but it seems that we're not getting where we need to get.
Yes, because there seems to be no political will on this. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it is the actual National Commissioner, Cabinet and Parliament that has to give strategic and policy direction on this. It's not up to the National Commissioner to determine what and how. Well, the what is important because they determine partly that. They determine how it's get done. But the strategic direction and policy directives come from the National Commissioner and from Parliament and our public representatives. We have the National Development Plan 2030, and it simply says that all senior police officers and other folks in the public service should be subjected to a skills audit, a lifestyle audit, and effectively to determine their competency and their fit and whether they fit to actually hold that position. And the fact that they have the necessary integrity and credibility to hold that position. Why are we not going forward with that? Why is that not being done? 2030 is round the corner, 2021, and we haven't seen movement on this. We've seen movement when it comes to junior officers being asked to avail themselves and to say, yes, we are credible, we're competent. Why is the senior management of the South African Police Service not publicly and to their peers presenting themselves for these audits? That's the one thing, and that should happen and can happen tomorrow. The second part of that is that we've also undertaken as a country to put in place a National Policing Board. The National Policing Board is supposed to set performance standards, to do the kind of oversight and auditing that we're talking about, ensure that people in positions of competence, and actually ensure that they're held accountable together with other, like the Portfolio Committee, the Civilian Secretariat of the Police, IPERD, and Parliament through the Department of Police. Why is the National Policing Board not being established? The people who seemingly are standing in the way of all these things happening surely cannot be the public servants who are under contract in the South African Police Service. Remember, all the senior managers have a contract. That contract is subject to change, and that contract is subject to implementation and making sure that they uphold and they do the job that they've been appointed for. Why are they not being held accountable for this? Surely they can't refuse to implement something when it comes as a public instruction from our public representatives.
Thank you very much for your keen insights. That was Senior Policing and Global Security Specialist Eldred de Klerk talking to us about the extreme backlog in processing of forensic samples. Still lots of questions that we need to ask the right people.